gears to the last part and talk about fundraising pains. What is your most dreaded but good question that you had during fundraising?
Yeah, so I think the one, at least for us, was like, what metrics are most important at this stage of your business today, and how are you tracking on that metric? And so for us, this was dreaded because, we started the company in January, and then we were pitching like in April. And so our MVP, we launched in February. We closed our like first 3 customers in March. We were still super early. I'd say we were before the point of actually having the metrics we know are most important at our stage of the business.
Mm.
And so the reason it's dreaded is like, it's a great question because it allows us to showcase the fact that we're actually thinking critically about the business, but it's dreaded because we can talk about like, yeah, this is the metric that we want to measure and here's why, but then you have to follow up with like, we don't have this metric just yet because we're not live.
Mhm.
And so like, while you're showing you have depth and clarity on the business itself, you then have to follow up to be like, well, our execution is still happening and like, we don't have enough information on this just yet.
That's very real. What investor questions made your eyes roll?
Anyone who's asking me for a financial model at like a pre-seed or seed stage company that like hasn't really launched just yet or is just getting started, that really makes me roll my eyes because we all know that like, we can create the rosiest model in the world and I can show you sort of, if everything goes right, here's what we can expect. But even when you look at those models, it just feels so crazy to like visualize that and think about that when as a founder, you know that there are unknown unknowns to your business that will impact this model and you just need time to figure that out and uncover it. And so I think that's a big one. And like usually it kind of like showcases an investor who might not be used to seed stage funding.
Mhm. Without naming names, what was the worst investor experience you had?
Yeah, so we were talking to this fund for like 4 weeks and they kept pushing us to like take more money. And so I told them what I told every investor who told us that was like, make us an offer and we'll consider it. And so they gave us a term sheet that was 1 million over what we were asking for. We went back and forth through negotiations and spent weeks talking to this fund. I'm talking like 5 separate partner pitches, bringing us into a fishbowl to have like rapid fire conversations with the entire fund, going back to negotiate the terms of the term sheet itself, and then ultimately being told on the last day that they were backing out and they wouldn't tell us why, despite running a ton of due diligence on us. So, yeah, like that was the worst experience I think we've had. It really took it was a bit of a gut punch for me personally, because I thought that, look, like we're done, we're set, we can get back to building and like growing, but it just reset the clock and we had to kind of start over again after having invested all that time.
Man, sorry to hear about that. That's pretty crappy. But looks like you
Yeah,
managed fine. You're still building and still growing.
exactly.
Having gone through fundraising, what did you learn about this process that no one told you before?
Yeah, so I think like there's a couple of things here. Number one was this idea of actually like setting up a process and time boxing it. And the second one is actually the order of operations for who you want to start talking to first. So something that wasn't very clear to me before was like, you should always start with angels, friends, family, former coworkers, and raise from them, and then approach institutions. And in some cases, like if you have a large enough personal network, it might even make sense to avoid institutions because you can control the clock better in terms of like having to figure out when you need to raise your next round. Once you start to work with an institution, you're going to start to feel a lot of pressure on, hey, like we need to increase growth so you can go raise your next round and I can like go sell these secondaries, right? And so I think that was something that wasn't very clear to me before either. I didn't fully understand sort of the calculus there. But something now that I think if I had to go back and do it again, I'd approach very differently.
Just how rough was it fundraising as a first-time founder? And how'd you stay sane throughout that?
Yeah, so I think bad it's only bad if you're not learning something from each conversation, right? Whether that's learning how the areas of your story that may be weaker, learning how investors are thinking about this problem space, learning about common questions that you may need to address. If you're not getting that, then it's going to be bad. And I'd say like the best way to stay sane, the first one is like, don't take it personally, right? Like, I think, and this is kind of just the nature of being a founder, is we are basically signing up for a lifetime of more rejections than yeses. And like, it's really easy to take that personally and be like, oh, this person rejected me because they don't like me or they don't like my business. But it's never a personal decision. So we shouldn't take it as such. And it's hard to say because like, as a founder, you've made an emotional investment in your business. And
Sure.
so for someone to say no, the easiest sort of path is to take it personally. So don't take it personally. The second one is to exercise. And there I would say both physically and mental exercise. So, physical exercise is kind of easy. Find an activity you like and get your heart pumping. Mental exercise, for some people, it's, meditation. For other people, it's reading a book. For some people, it might be like playing chess or playing games, but doing things to help you get your mind off of it, even for a little bit, so you can reset. And then the final one is to talk to your co-founder and, always keep them aligned in terms of what's happening. For me personally, like, I think my co-founder really stepped up when we were fundraising, and like that kind of like made all the difference for us.
Last one. What was the craziest valuation you saw at the seed stage recently, and what do you think about that?
Yeah, so I think there was a company in our batch that raised at a $45 million valuation. And I think my first thought was amazing. Like, I was super happy for them because that's a huge achievement. And then I think my second thought was they're gonna have to they're gonna have to have some pretty kick-ass metrics to raise an A round. But I think, like now, especially kind of given the funding environment, like for someone to achieve a valuation that high at the seed stage, the founders like had to have done something great, right? Whether it's like a great story, having a great business, or just being like great and sort of like very well seasoned vets themselves. And so I was happy for them. I thought that was awesome. It's kind of inspiring, right? Like in taking on that high of a seed valuation, you're really betting on yourself that you're going to make this work and that the A round's going to be even higher.
Sweet. That's all we have for today. Sai, this is a ton of fun. Thanks for joining us.
Alex, thank you for having me. Go True Wind. Always a great time chatting with you.